Okay, welcome everyone to video calls provided by Accessible Tech Thursdays, brought to you by the EdTech Demonstrator Programme. Today, I'll be with myself, Neil Beck, and with Stephen Cooper on taking your questions from Balcarras. If you want to follow us, the Twitter handles are on the screen. You can see at the moment, at Neil J. Beck or at Balcarras. And this is the second section of our webinar program where we're focusing more on the delivery. The first section focused on access methods, and now we're talking about delivery. So as we spend so long in video calls, we've decided to focus on this first. So accessibility features in video calls can be a changing and complicated maze. If you focus on your learner's needs, then you can navigate this, but remember, not all barriers are consistent or obvious. So what does this mean? This can mean that learners might not have obvious kind of barriers but these might change every week, whether it's access to technology, whether it's problems with equipment, whether it's background noise or interference. So the more we can do to make this accessible, we're making it accessible for everyone, not just those with those obvious kind of barriers. And of course, it's changing as well. So just bear in mind that what we're providing today is a snapshot of how things are at the moment, and they are developing all the time. I notice whenever I have a short amount of time off, I have to come back and kind of quickly bring myself up to speed on all the new features that are coming out on these platforms. So yeah, feel free to update me if there's any more that you know of that I haven't covered today. So just as some general tips, you can pin videos for sign language or lip reading. It can be easier to concentrate for people when they can see someone talking. You can use the control and mouse wheel for zoom in most windows. So if you try that now, hold control and use the mouse wheel, and you can zoom in on content and zoom back out again. Is it better to record? The consensus is kind of growing that yes, often some content is easier to record. You can correct yourself, you can be sure of the content and the accessibility, and you can then focus more time on being reactive to the learner's needs. We'll be covering more of that in the following weeks with some kind of work on flipped learning and blended learning as well. You can use shared folders for resources. That's really useful to kind of go alongside the video calls. So you've got that kind of total communication where you're both talking, you've got the video visuals, and you've got the documents there as well. And just try and describe images whenever they're appropriate. So on the right hand side of this image, we've got an example of that where we've got the control and the mouse wheel, just to show people how to zoom in and out on resources. So yeah, I'd be interested if that's a new feature for anyone here, the control and mouse wheel. It's one of my favorites because it works on so many different windows. Okay, some things to consider about with a microphone. All presenters should use an external headset microphone. The built-in laptop microphones pick up too many background noises. And you can guarantee that when you come to present, that's when you're going to get all the background noise. And I've actually got a dog barking outside right now, which is typical. It's good to mute when you're not speaking to avoid distracting noise or breathing. And you can learn the keyboard shortcut for mute. That can be quite helpful, and for some people can be easier than clicking. I still prefer to click, but it's worth having a go anyway. And all of these contribute to more accurate captioning. So we'll talk a little bit further later on about captioning, and we'll even talk about how we're captioning today. Webcam, so always make sure you've got your webcam on when presenting to assist lip readers. Make sure your face can be seen clearly. So in the room that I'm in at the moment, I've got natural light from the front, and I've also turned on the lights behind me, so there's a nice even light, and there's not a light from behind causing a kind of dramatic silhouette, and there's no strong light from the side causing a shadow. Move your microphone so it's not right in front of your lips. If it's in front of your lips, you'll get a lot more of the breathing sounds, and you don't want that. You just want to hear the voice. And don't be too far away from the camera as well. So they say a mugshot on the screen is a good way to think about it, like a passport photo. Yeah, I've got some little tips on keeping staff and students safe. I'll just highlight a few of these as I go along, because this could be a whole subject in itself. But the website at the bottom there, bit.ly/videoconf practice with capital letters V, C, and P. That's where you can find this document and the links within it. But yeah, just worth kind of agreeing whatever you're choosing with parents and carers. Follow your gut. If there is something you feel uncomfortable on a one-to-one call, end the call, talk with your line manager and people around you. Make sure your safeguarding training is up to date. I think some people, because it's a different context, they're forgetting just to apply the same kind of rules that we have for safeguarding, understandably so, because everything is so different. Yeah, treat this as you would a face-to-face with a meeting, and I think if you set professional kind of standards and expectations of yourself, your learners are more likely to follow that too. No promises though. And yeah, remind learners if you're going to record any calls or videos, but this is a bit of a minefield, so just be careful, safeguard both parties, and don't routinely share these. And test your audio and video before any scheduled call, just to make sure it's all working okay. Yeah, live classes should be kept to a reasonable length of time. I think we all know that it takes more concentration to do these video calls than it would a normal lesson. So just try and bear that in mind, and try and balance it with independent study, watching resources, watching recorded videos, and then have a shorter kind of session where you're interacting with the learners and supporting them on a one-to-one basis, for example. Yeah. Just some more safety tips there. Yeah, don't shout, obviously. Don't tap or touch your mic, because that'll be quite annoying. And yeah, the stripes or heavy patterns creates pixelation of images. I think I'm okay today, but that's probably borderline. Better be careful with that one. So now we're going to go through some of the individual platforms. I thought we'd start with Zoom as it's the one that we've used this time around, and it was a tough decision actually to decide what platform we were going to use, and there would have been advantages and disadvantages to lots of different ones. We decided for Zoom, one of the key features was one-click join, and people seem to find it quite easy to join. It does work well with screen readers, which if you've seen our visual webinar, then you'll know that those are important features for learners with visual impairments. We've got keyboard shortcuts, a link there, that makes that more accessible for learners. Captions were a bit awkward. They expect you to use a third-party provider or a person. And that's quite beyond a lot of people to just be able to do very quickly. So it's probably, I would say it's Zoom's biggest weakness is the kind of lack of easy captioning and built-in captioning. And I really hope they change that at some point in the future. The idea that you could always have a person there typing out what everyone is saying and being able to keep up with it is just not realistic for most people in most environments. So I did experiment at first with a third-party provider, and you can get deals from about £20 a month. There's a bit of setting up, so you might need someone tech savvy. It's why I haven't included this within this webinar, because if you do need that help, you probably need some more specific one-to-one help. So do get in touch if you're interested in that. But what we've used is PowerPoint and the translator add-in. So I'll be sure to cover that later for you if you're looking for another alternative. Zoom does provide a transcript, which is a great little feature. I've got a link there kind of showing you how to get to it. And interestingly, 92% of those tested by Fable, who are an accessibility testing firm, chose Zoom as their tool of choice. So that's pretty positive. I've included the link there if anyone wants to read further on that. As far as text-to-speech tools, they found that Zoom works well with literacy software, Read and Write. I believe it also works well with Claro. One major assistive technology that they found it struggles with is Zoom Text Reader, and that's for people with visual impairments. It was possible to navigate between Zoom's various panels using the Zoom's keyboard shortcuts, but keyboard access to the content and buttons within those panels was not possible. So something to consider if you're working with learners with visual impairments who use Zoom Text to access resources. New feature that I haven't actually got around to trying yet is sharing a presentation as your background, and I'd like to try this in the weeks to come at some point. So you may see a kind of more silhouette version of me in the coming weeks. But yeah, you can go to click the share screen button located in your meeting controls, click advanced, and then click slides as virtual background. So then the slides will be behind me as I'm talking. I'm going to have to do some testing there because I want to make sure that it still works with the captions and that it isn't intrusive. I think if any of you are trying that and having problems, I think it might be to do with the version of Zoom. You'll need a pretty up-to-date version. So we're talking with your IT support about that. Just to mention a good little link I found while searching online. There's someone called Jonathan Mosen, and they're a blind podcaster from New Zealand, and they've created an in-depth audio book titled Meet Me Accessibly, and it gives tutorials to help teach easy to advanced tasks to fellow blind Zoom users. So I thought that was a great little link there, so we've included that if you're working with anyone with visual impairments. Microsoft Teams, this is obviously more than a video conferencing tool. It's a complete setup. So many organizations will already be using Microsoft Teams, so it seems like a natural step to use the video call and all the accessibility built in. The main advantage that Teams has got over Zoom is that built-in captioning. So you can go on to, kind of any meeting and turn on the live captions, and they're fairly accurate, which is really useful. I've just picked out a few of the kind of main features of Microsoft Teams. So it is screen reader accessible, so you can test that with your whatever screen reader you've got, and that should work fine. The picture quality and sound quality are good. There's a nice simple user interface. External guests can join. Chat can be accessed within the web browser, and the web browser's got good functionality. Audio, video, and screen sharing activity can be recorded, which is really useful. So you can go onto Teams, record a video of you doing something, and then use that to kind of send out to your learners. And automatic transcription as well, that allows users to play back the conversation and search within the transcript. So very strong in those areas. Being able to blur your background for privacy or to remove distractions for those lip reading is useful. There's a chat messaging function. Some downsides are that the browser-based web app doesn't support real-time calls or meetings. The live captions are only available in English. You do not have the option of adding your own caption provider to the call, although that won't apply to many people, I wouldn't imagine. And blur background function is disabled for some users. That's been a problem that some people have highlighted. We've got some really useful keyboard shortcuts, again, to help you navigate, especially useful for learners with visual impairments, and an accessibility overview of Teams there too. There's also some guides on using sign language for learners, and a useful link provided by Microsoft there. So there's a really interesting video there if you're working with those learners with those barriers. Okay, so another major one is Google Hangouts. They have high quality live captions available, and from what I've heard, they are the most accurate at the moment, although with the speed of development, you know, it's hard to test that. There are good keyboard shortcuts again for video calls and within the chat function. They're screen reader accessible. If you're interested in using screen readers with either the Google Hangouts or Microsoft Teams, then be sure to go back on our YouTube playlist and check out the text-to-speech webinar where we'll go through a few different options of text-to-speech so you can work out which are good there. Integrates with both Microsoft Outlook and Gmail. It's got a simple, easy-to-use interface. You can use it in your web browser, and it's got a full-page zoom magnifier, high contrast color, and accessibility extensions in Chrome browser. Those accessibility extensions in Chrome browser are things like things that will change background colors, yeah, again, text-to-speach tools, prediction tools, and there's a lot there. So if you are interested in finding out more about those, then let us know, and maybe we can do a video short where we just cover some of those. Google Hangouts, any user can mute anyone on the call, supports up to 250 participants, censors swear words. We don't recommend giving that a try, just in case, but I'm sure it's pretty good. At least one call participant must have a paid for G Suite account, and captions are only available in English again. Frustratingly, if you record a video meeting, the captions are not recorded and don't appear when you play the recording, which is a real pity. And yeah, hope they work on that soon. We've got some, I won't go through these fully, but the slides are shared in our folder. And there's some really useful little, so these are documentation guides that will tell you how to do these things, so you can create little how-tos. So on here we've got live captions, how to do those in Google Hangouts, screen readers and magnifiers, keyboard shortcuts, and Google Meeting Room hardware, all in those links. The other resource that I found that was really useful is just some short videos, just telling you about some accessibility within Google Hangouts. They're quite basic, but they are short and useful little things to get people started. So the ones that you might be interested in there are closed captions, which is the first one on there, and the last one there, which is Google Meet accessibility, which goes through some of the features. I wanted to mention Blackboard. I know some people are using this. The accessibility features are certainly more limited than the other providers that we've talked about, but I know that some people do use Blackboard as their main tool, especially in kind of college kind of upwards. So yeah, it provides HTML content, which makes it accessible as web pages and things are, with lots of different features there. It does work with JAWS and VoiceOver, has high contrast kind of modes, quick links and keyboard logins. There's no speech to text function, so that's a real shame. There are live captions, but users do report it being quite difficult to navigate. It's a little bit more complex, as I think the nature of the program is. So earlier on, I said I was going to go through a little bit about how we're captioning today. So we're using a translator plugin. So this is a plugin for Microsoft PowerPoint, and it will allow you to be able to share subtitles in PowerPoint. So within PowerPoint, if I go to slideshow and then start subtitles, that is only available to me as I have the extension installed. You might not have that installed yet, but when you do, you'll be able to use it, and it will give you a dialog box, as you can see on the right hand side there, where you can choose what language you'll be speaking, and you can see what language you'd like to display the subtitles in. So generally that will be English and English. And it will learn from your speech recognition, and you can also let it run through your slides and pick out the words there. So if you're using those words, it's more likely to be able to recognize them, which is quite a handy little feature. So then we get the subtitles at the bottom, which is really useful. It can be a little bit more complex to add other users. So on other weeks when we've had other presenters speaking, it can take a little bit of fiddling around. So just let us know if you want to do that and you'd like some support with that, and we'll see if we can help. The other useful feature is the record slides feature. And this means you can choose where you want to start recording from, and you can record your text and video. I've got a short video just to show you how that works, as I thought that would be quite useful. And it's online, and we've got the shortened link there. And as always, if you're sharing screen on Zoom, make sure to click the share computer sound. That's probably my #1 mistake, so I try and keep an eye out for that.
Want to record yourself and create narration for your presentation? Select Slideshow, Record Slideshow. Choose where you want to start recording from. We want to start from the beginning of the presentation, so we'll select Record from Beginning. When you're ready, select Record and start speaking. Welcome to the Webcam All Hands meeting. Pause or stop as needed, and if you're done recording, replay it. To record narration for a specific slide, go to it. Narration won't record during slide transitions, so let those play first before you start speaking. And when you're ready, select Record and start speaking. All information in this presentation is confidential. If you use the pen, highlighter, or eraser tool, it'll record as well. An audio icon appears to let people know there's narration available. And to remove timing or narration from your recording, select Clear and choose what to take out. When you're done, save and share your presentation with others as a PowerPoint file or video. And your recording automatically plays when someone starts your presentation. Welcome to the Webcam All Hands meeting.
Okay, so quite a useful little tool there, and particularly useful for those teachers who are maybe a little bit more nervous about seeing themselves on video or kind of sharing themselves live. Then it gives them the chance to be able to record that in their own time and to make corrections and get it right and then share it when they're ready. So that can be quite a useful tool for teachers. So yeah, just to summarize that, Microsoft PowerPoint has some really useful built-in tools that can help you with video calls. So within just this short slide, we've covered both captioning and recording presentations in an accessible format. So both really useful there. Transcripts. So most of the options that we've spoken about today have good kind of transcript tools. If there's a problem with them and you're finding that they're not working, then I just wanted to give you an idea that there are some other options out there. So otter.ai, you'll need a paid subscription for this, but you can upload any video to there and it will provide a transcript. And there are some features there that can mean that you can identify different voices as well. And it gives quite a clear transcript. So if you're looking for something really professional, Otter has a really good function there. YouTube just does have some captioning. You're reliant on the built-in accuracy there though. And there are some third-party stroke cloud providers as well. So I'm thinking that most people will be covered by the built-in, but if there are any problems beyond that, then just let us know. Okay, so we're coming towards the end now. There's a few additional sources there if you'd like some more details on what we've covered today. Big Hack are a group that have tested and gone through the accessibility features of the different platforms. And there's also a useful article there on which video conferencing tools are the most accessible. So if there's any questions, then feel free to type those in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'll just review what's coming up. So this week we've had video calls. Next week, we're covering remote therapy. We're joined by Sarah Alderman from High Furlong, who's going to be leading us through that. The week afterwards, we're going to cover both blended and flipped learning. So there'll be some really useful tools there to help you rethink how the way you teach can improve the accessibility for your learners. These are all at 4:15 p.m. And if you follow that link there, that's a permanent link. So you can always find our recorded webinars there and any forthcoming webinars. And visual learning on the 5th of November, we're going to cover things like mind mapping. We're going to cover ways of recording video as an input. We're going to cover visual timetables and a lot more. And that week, we're also going to have a drop-in at the end. So if you have any particular student issues or things that you'd like to cover, you can either let us know in advance and we'll cover it in that session, or you can bring your question live and we'll deal with it there. So thank you everyone for attending this week. We, as always, will upload this to our YouTube channel. You can see the shortened link there at the top. We've got our Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook profiles there. And the EdTech Demonstrator program is providing one-to-one support and group support for schools and colleges. So if you'd like to sign up for assistance, you can visit the bottom left link there, edtechdemonstrator.lgfl.net. So if there's no further questions, we'll finish there. Thank you everyone, and hopefully see you next week.